I played in the first Stellar Crown tournament. With the release of the new set being just around the corner, it means it's time for everybody's favorite tournament. So let's start where all Pokemon tournaments begin, with a deck of 60 cards. I mean 40 cards. 40 cards for this one. That's right, it's pre-release time. For every main Pokemon set, there are pre-releases being run in the 2 weeks leading up to the set's official release date. And for this event, we're getting excited for the release of Stellar Crown. This set is bringing a bunch of awesome Terra-type supporting cards, as well as an assortment of new Stellar Terra-type EX cards, which are looking to bring a whole bunch of flavor to this meta. So like at any pre-release, we're all excited just to get our hands on this set early, and get a small snippet of what we're looking forward to in this new format. Now, like with all pre-release tournaments, you'll receive a build and battle kit that features a full pre-constructed 40 card deck, which also includes a super cool promo card. And for me, we managed to snag the Bouffalant promo. That within the deck was supported by a heavy line of Ledibas and Ledians. Now with every pre-release kit, you also get 4 extra booster packs, which will give you the chance of acquiring new cards that you are then able to substitute into your pre-built deck. However, with the packs that I got in my kit, let's just say we're definitely reaching to add any of these cards, purely so we weren't just running the already constructed 40. Now in my packs, not only did I get donuts for hits, we also hit pretty much no relevant playables. So with only a few minutes left to construct our deck, we had the tiniest of cooks. After a bit of shifting around, we have a list. Is it worse than the default 40? Potentially, but damn it, we added some cards. So let's check out the list. We have 3 Fan Rotoms, which allow us to get a bunch of Bouffalants into play, and in turn this activates their Curly Wall ability, which will make all of our basic colorless Pokemon a little bit tankier. We also have a 4-3 Ledian line, which will allow us to gust up Pokemon from our opponent's bench with the Ledian Star Pattern ability. Not only that, but Ledian is also a fantastic free retreat pivot, giving us great synergy with Jet Energy and allowing us to make a nice little pivot for our Bouffalant so we can attack multiple turns in a row. Now with the amount of colorless Pokemon I saw floating around at this pre-release event, I tried to add the only fighting type Pokemon that I had access to out of my packs, and that was the Diancie, which isn't a bad card as it does help me attack for more damage if my opponent puts special energies into play, but it also hits for 60 damage with 2 energies, which is pretty good as long as you're hitting for weakness. So to get the Diancie in the deck, we swapped out a couple of grass energies for fighting energies, and then just to get some more exciting cards in the list, why not, I threw in one of the gravity gemstones, as I thought I might be able to get a combination with this Tauros, where I could use its destructive horn move to trap a Pokemon in the active and then continually discard energies from it. And then I also chucked 1 Carnivine in the list as well, as Carnivine did have an attack that did 130 damage and worked well with our already predominantly grass type deck, but the real determining factor was that it had the attack Nosh, and I thought that was pretty sick, so he's in the list. So with our deck ready, it's time to jump into round number 1. First round, we get paired up into Rob, and we're playing a mirror match. Now, he gets to go first, which is a huge benefit for him, as in this pre-release, there is no energy acceleration, so being able to attach that energy first turn is really, really strong. But also, going second is pretty decent for consistency as well, as being able to have access to your supporters does mean that you have a higher chance of getting those Fan Rotoms in your first hand, which can really accelerate your starter. Rob attaches an energy to his active Lediba, and then sets up another Lediba on the bench, and that's his turn. Over to me, I've got a pretty fine start. I can get a energy as well as my Bravery Charm attached to active, bench Lediba and a Bouffalant, which is immediately going to set up my Curly Wall ability, potentially reducing some of Rob's damage next turn. Rob drops down a Fan Rotom, and he evolves the active and brings up my Lediba, while attaching a additional energy to his active and securing the first KO of the match. Now, while losing my Lediba does suck, it means that I can go into my Bouffalant and start loading up the active whilst not having any threat of getting knocked out next turn. I send it back over to Rob, and he just goes draw attack, which gets me in a super powerful position, as in my next turn, I can just attach the Jet Energy from hand, chuck down my Youngster, draw an additional set of fresh cards, find a Lediba, and then secure a knockout on his Ledian, which had all of his energy in play attached to it. This puts Rob in a little bit of a tough spot, where all he can do is build up his board with the help of Artisan, and hit me for a whole 10 damage with Fan Rotom. Now, the one issue with Bouffalant is that it can only attack every other turn. So without any Jet Energies, this Bouffalant is just going to be stuck in the active. So I just have to attach to Bouffalant on the bench and pass. Luckily for me, Rob still doesn't have enough energy on board to put in a strong attack. So yet again, hits me for 10 damage with the active Fan Rotom. And now for my turn, I'm back online with my Bouffalant ready to start taking some KOs. I evolve the Lediba on the bench to Ledian and use its Glittering Star Pattern ability to bring up the Lediba Ladybug on the bench, and then secure my second KO of the game. Rob continues to load up the Bouffalant on the bench, and now it's only 1 energy away from getting an attack off next turn, and then continues his Fan Rotom Bombardment on my active. Now a huge top deck for me is the Colress's Tenacity, which searches out 1 Jet Energy and a Cycling Road. This means that I can move my Ledian into the active, and with free retreat, I can bring it straight back to the bench. Resetting my Bouffalant's Boundless Power attack means that I can take 2 consecutive knockouts. This turn, Rob's hand is super drained. He doesn't have any energies to cycle back into play, so yet again, for 4 turns in a row, he just has to hit me with Fan Rotom. For my next turn, I simply retreat my Bouffalant into my benched Bouffalant, attach an energy, and then swing the knockout on the Rotom with my Boundless Power. And then we take game 1. For game number 2, I am going first this time, which is really good for me as my hand is solid. I start by playing my Fan Rotom, search me out another 2 Bouffalant, and then I attach to the active for my turn. And while my setup's really good, Rob's is even better. Rob gets a full board setup with an energy attached to the active Ladybug, and now it's time for me to try and put in some work. I get an Amona to draw a couple of additional cards, finding me a fantastic Artisan, which I'll be using to get a Ladybug out of my deck. Energy attached for my turn as well. And with 2 energies attached to my active and an energy in hand, I now have a KO guaranteed for my next turn. Rob evolves up into Ledian, bringing up the Ladybug once again, and then securing the first knockout of this game as well. I draw for turn and then Artisan once again for a Ladybug, as I'm really looking for Ledian to give me that free retreat pivot, as well as charging up the Swift move with the Jet energies. And I Boundless Power to take the KO on Ledian. Rob hits up another Ledian, bringing up my Ladybug, but this time it's 1 turn too early, as he's not actually able to take a KO this turn. So while I have a Ledian in hand, this gives me a perfect free retreat pivot to just go back into the Bouffalant and secure another knockout, which is really starting to put the pressure on. Rob attaches to the Bouffalant, benches a Ledian, and has to just pass back to me. I'm ready to turn on the NOS by attaching a second energy to one of my bench Bouffalants, finding another Gust, as well as attaching Bravery Charm to active. Now for Youngster, I draw into my 2 Jet energies, which looks really good for securing me the rest of this game. Rob goes for a Evolve into Ledian and glitters up my Rotom into the active, which I just attach an energy to and retreat, which is actually really fine, as it still gives me the 2 outs to my double Jet energies. Here, Rob is actually able to get an attack off with a Bouffalant due to both of us having Curly Wall abilities in play. These do only hit for 70 damage, but I can just Jet energy my other Bouffalant into the active and swing for KO. Rob can't really do anything, and with a simple bench of my Ledian to bring up a Fan Rotom, a retreat into a Bouffalant is all it takes for me to secure game 2. So we're starting off with a 1-0 record. For our second round, we are playing Josh, and he's running an absolute concoction of a list. I win the coin flip and elect to go first. I start off with a Fan Rotom in my hand, building up a strong board with 2 Bouffalant in play, as well as 1 Fan Rotom, and I get my energy attached to my active for turn. Over to Josh, he starts out with a Bouffalant and hits an Artisan, which gets him a Mind Fu. Now, I have no idea what this card does, but it is a fighting type, which is super scary, and not knowing what its evolution does makes me even more spooked. He throws down a Duraludon into play and attaches his energy for turn to his bench Bouffalant, and it swings back over to me. I get a Ladybug off my top deck and play it down, as well as find another one of Artisan, which is going to be key if I want to gust up that Mind Fu. I find a Rika, which gives me an out to Colress's Tenacity and an extra energy to build up my hand, and then we just go for the pass. Josh continues to cook, benching a Raging Bolt and continuing to load up that Bouffalant on the bench with energy, and also plays down Archelodon, which is unbelievably scary. Archelodon's ability gives free retreat to any Pokemon with a Steel type energy attached to it, which if he can get 2 Bouffalants online, means he doesn't need to find Jet energies even to pivot. My turn, I bench down a Tauros, use my Ledian to target that Mind Fu, as it's still very scary. Attach for turn to the active, and then we start swinging with Boundless Power for knockout. Josh slings down a Glameow and adds his final energy to his active, which due to Curly Wall taking effect, hits me for 70 damage. Now here I top deck a Jet energy, which I could use to get back into the active and attack this Bouffalant for 70 damage. However, because Josh can't attack this next turn, I decide to play it slow and decide to power on my Bouffalant on the bench. Sadly, Josh does have a Jet energy in hand for his next turn, which he uses to free retreat back onto the bench and Jet his Bouffalant back into the active. However, this gets into an interesting position where he's now attached a 4th energy to a Bouffalant, meaning that he might start to fall behind on the energy trade. I kick off with my Ledian with free retreat in the active, and I use Artisan to bring out my Diancie, which was pretty much the only relevant fighting type Pokemon that I got out of all of my packs. And it's not bad. It does at least hit here for 20 damage for 1 energy, while Curly Wall wall is up. However, this obviously scared Josh a little bit as he retreats into the Raging Bolt and passes back to me. I throw down that Chorus Tenacity and start to get some more energy to keep building up this Bouffalant on my bench. But Josh isn't in a bad spot as he does have the fighting energy to attach to Raging Bolt, allowing it to snipe my bench Letty buff for 60. But once again, we use Artisan and get another Letty buff to replace it because I want the Gust Outs in play. I Jet Energy my Bouffalant into the active, which gives me a clean KO onto the Raging Bolt. Josh, now being an energy behind, is slow to start powering up the Perugly, which is now in play, and hits me for 70 damage to knock out my active Bouffalant. My play here is just go crazy with this Diancie, which now having a second energy attached to it, is hitting for a whopping 60 damage into a Bouffalant. Josh then chucks a Bravery Charm on that Bouffalant and retreats it back in for Perugly, and just has to pass. Now this is interesting for Josh, as while he's only got one prize card remaining and can knock out this Diancie next turn, he forgets about one thing: Bravery Charm. I attach a Bravery Charm to my active, giving it enough HP to survive a Boundless Power from a Bouffalant. I bump the Artisan, hit my Youngster, Bug Catching set for a Gust for next turn, and hit 120 damage for knockout on the Perugly in the active. And I'm feeling pretty good right now. Josh benches down a Fan Rotom and attaches an energy, as he might have to retreat and hit this Diancie next turn. And then he hits me for 130 with Boundless Power. But luckily, I have one energy in hand, which I use to attach to Ledian. I retreat Diancie and hit with Swift, which whilst only doing 70 damage, goes through all effects on the active Pokemon, which hits for 70 regardless of Curly Wall, which is the exact amount of damage that I needed to KO through Bravery Charm. And here, Josh is baffled. He was giving me grief for reading every single one of his cards, and now it comes back to bite him as he double checks to realize, yes, it does in fact have Shred. So we take game 1 and we move on to game 2. Josh elects to go first, starting out with a Bouffalant and another Mindfu on the bench yet again. I start with a Fan Rotom in the active, so I'm happy just to go in, grab 2 Bouffalants, as well as a Fan Rotom to chuck down to my bench. And we start loading up our bench Bouffalant. Josh whacks down a Melmetal and attaches to active, and I don't really have much going on, but luckily I have energy in hand, so I can keep up with the energy race. Josh hustles pretty hard and evolves into a Melmetal, and he gets the first KO with Bouffalant. I play down my Rico and get a couple of drawing supporters for next turn, and then I just have to hit for 70 with my own Boundless Power. Josh starts going wild here, Jet Energying up a Celebi into the active, just to use Collect to draw an additional card. I'm able to play Nemona down, which finds me a beautiful Lediba to bench. I Jet Energy my Lediba into the active and retreat it back for my Bouffalant, making my Boundless Power back online, which means that I can keep up with the prize race and still be able to knock out his Bouffalant first if he decides to put that into the active next turn, which of course he does. He starts loading up Melmetal as well and hits my Bouffalant for 70. And I'm super lucky that I can keep chaining Jet Energies. I play down the Ledian and don't gust any Pokemon, and instead just use the Jet Energy to get into the active and free retreat back to the bench for Bouffalant, reserving my attach energy in play and giving me a KO onto Bouffalant. Josh is then able to move Melmetal into the active, attach a tool that he'll eventually need to use to attack with, and a Lightning Energy, but still barely has any cards in hand. I chuck down Artisan and start loading up my bench with some Ledibuzz, as I might just gust around this Melmetal to close out the game. I then retreat my active Bouffalant, allowing me to save the one energy attached to it for a following turn. And Josh definitely doesn't have much going on, as he just sends it right back to me. I'm able to start loading up my Bouffalant again on the bench, and now it's a little bit of a waiting game, as Josh continues to draw, attach, and pass to me. Finally, I get my Bouffalant fully loaded back up, another energy attached for Josh, and yet again another pass. And now we start loading up the active, as retreat here might actually be our next best out. And the following turn, we do find an extra energy. So yet again, we used to boss up that Mindfu to hit it with Boundless Power for the KO. Josh eventually finds an energy to hit for a knockout with his active Melmetal, but I'm lucky enough to have a energy in hand to attach to my Ledian, evolve my Ledibo on the bench, and gust up a Glameow to hit it for enough damage to take the KO. And that secures us game 2. Moving on to round 3 at a 2-0 record. Round 3, we get paired up against Jake, running a Crabominable and Kofu deck. This deck is wild, as in my deck, I have nothing that hits for weakness or does enough damage to knock out any of the Crabominables in play. I win the coin flip and I elect to go first, and on my turn 1, I start out with a Fan Rotom, which allows me to go get a couple of Bouffalants out of my deck and put 2 down onto the bench, as well as starting with a Lediba to position a potential Gust next turn. For Jake's turn, he puts down a Crabrawler and then uses Fan Rotom to grab a pair of Bouffalants, and then slings into me for 10 damage. Now, I'm already on a time crunch. There's that one Crabrawler, and the moment that turns into a Crabominable, I have no way of knocking it out, so I have to just cross my fingers and hope we can get the knockout in the next couple of turns. I simply attach the active, use the Artisan in play to grab another Lediba, and then pass over my turn. Over to Jake, he plays down a Veluza. This is another wild card that this Kofu deck has in its arsenal, with its ability allowing it to reduce its energy cost for every Kofu in the discard pile. He loads it up with 1 energy and passes back over to me. Lucky I now have an out to gust up the Crab Brawler, so we're able to take the first knockout of the game. Jake then plays down another Crab Brawler, which yet again puts the pressure on. And then also Jake slings down his first Kofu of the game, meaning that his Veluza and potential Crabominable are going to be 1 energy cheaper to attack with. He attaches to the Crab and then swings it back over to me. I kick things off with a Jet Energy to retreat my Ledian and reset Bouffalance's attack, and then I just Boundless Power for 70 damage onto the Bouffalant in the active. And now Jake is rolling. He's got yet again another Kofu to dig further into his deck. He attaches a Bravery Charm onto the active, which is ridiculous. Now I don't even have a 2-hit secured on the active Bouffalant, and with an attached to Crab Brawler, it's back over to me to try and see if I can make anything happen. All I can do is just load up another Bouffalant on the bench and pass my turn. And now we're in the danger zone. Jake has got his Crabominable in play. I've no way of gusting it, and I've no way of one-hitting it. Jake uses a Jet Energy to shoot the Crabominable into the active, and with the Crab in the active, he just KOs my Bouffalant in one shot. And I'm not gonna lie, after that first knockout, it was just one after another. My Lediba goes down, my Fan Rotom went down to another Crabominable, and then I just have to scoop it. There's nothing that I can do to stop this onslaught of Crabominables and Veluzas. Going to game 2, we start out with a Lediba in the active. I play down my Fan Rotom yet again and get a couple of boys that I can chuck down into play, and I go for a Carnivine, because why not? Jake is also cooking along with a nice board, and he already starts out with his first Kofu, finding yet again a second Crab Brawler. And I'm not gonna lie, the moment I see 2 crabs on the field, I pretty much have no idea what I can do for this game. And what do you know? Jake then immediately gets a Crabominable into play with an energy attach, and just to stop me from even having a chance at gusting the little Crab Brawler, he chucks a Bravery Charm onto it. And I'm just out here manually attaching, hitting for 10 damage with Fan Rotom. Then Jake finds one of his Jet Energies, shoots the Crabominable up into the active, and much like the last game, he just ends up being able to pivot between all of these Pokemon and just goes through my entire board, and it's just game over. This deck was just way too good for the pre-release, and I had nothing I could do against it. So by the end, we finished with a 2-1 record. And now with Stellar Crown officially here, we have some big things coming. So make sure you're subscribed to not miss out.